Hi everybody, my name is Allison and today we are going to be working on turning sea glass into jewelry, just like this. So let's gather up our materials. We have our sea glass here. This is a really cool piece of green sea glass that I found on the beach this morning. And then I have a pair of pliers and some wire cutters that I'm going to use to make my jewelry. I also have the wire, and I have two kinds of wire I'm going to be using. This is called square wire. If you look super closely at it, you'll see that there's little corners. So this is actually a little itty bitty square going all the way around. That means that the wire is going to lay really nicely next to each other, just like this. I also have another one that is called half round. This one is shaped like a little semicircle that is going to be really helpful for holding the square wire together. Now, if you don't have these fancy kinds of wire, that's totally fine. You can use whatever you do have, as long as it's a wire that you can bend. Next up, we're going to take those three pieces of square wire and we're going to line them up right next to each other. Can be a little tough when the wire is wiggly like this, so I'm going to straighten it out the best I can. Alright, so I have them all lined up nice and next to each other. If you have one that's longer than the other two, put that guy in the middle. Then when I'm feeling good about where they are, I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to use them to hold that tight. I want those to hang out as close together as we can. Now the half round comes in. Going to take the half round and about at the halfway point. Again, nothing here is exact. We're going to take that and wrap it around our three pieces of wire. You'll do a couple more wraps just to get them nice and tight. So I've wrapped it around a couple more times. Now that I'm happy with how many times it's wrapped around, how tight these are next to each other, I'm going to take my wire cutters and I'm going to get them close and snip. Then you're going to take your pliers and you're going to use those to tuck in those ends. We don't want anything sharp sticking out. So use the pliers to just squeeze down the ends of that half round wire. Perfect. Now we have a bundle of square wires all held together in about the middle with that half round. And those are tight, they're not going anywhere. Now we get to bring in the sea glass. So take your sea glass, decide which side you want to be up, which one you want to be down, how you want it to look. Personally, with a piece like this, I am going to make this side with a little bump the front, and I want the point up at the top. So I'm going to hold it with the front facing me, and then I'm going to put the part that has the half round wire right about in the middle of the bottom. Now this is your first wire bending part. This is where the tough part begins. Use as much hand strength as you can, and you're going to hold that wire tight and fold it up. If you have to go one wire at a time, that's okay. This is really tough to do depending on the shape of your shell or your sea glass or whatever it is that you're working with. This one is a very weird shape, so it's extra tough. And I'm just gonna fold it all around the edge. Sometimes the wire can be a little bit finicky. With the wire, the goal is to make a little cage for the sea glass to sit in. So I'm going to look at the bottom here, and I'm going to actually spread out these three a little bit. So I'm going to want one to go to the back of the sea glass, one to stay right around the middle, and then the last one is going to go around the front. So I can move the back and the front out of the way just a little bit, and now take my sea glass and put it back in there. My goal is to be able to hold it up at the top, not touch the sea glass, and just hold on to the wire and have it sit in there. Just like that. But you see this gap at the bottom? That's not going to look good. So we're going to spend a little bit more time trying to get this as perfect as possible. When I'm at the spot where I want the necklace to come into, where the chain's going to go, so I want that to be up at the very top of the sea glass where that point is. So it's going to hang from right there. That's where I can take the wire and bend it at an angle so it comes straight up from there. Let's work on that back wire there. Now this is what's going to be against your skin if you're wearing it as a necklace. So this can be a little bit less pretty than the front. And this is where a lot of the structure is going to come from. So I am going to do a cross with these wires. Cross them across the back here so that this sea glass doesn't accidentally pop out of the back. If you do this right, it can look really pretty too. So you can actually use that as a way to decorate the front of the piece as well. Especially if you wanted to add some fancy loops or something like we did on this one. But this one, I'm gonna have it on the back and I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. So I'm gonna make that loop and now I'm gonna bend it to try and meet that middle wire. It's gonna look pretty funky as you're doing this. It's gonna feel like you're not doing the right thing. It's okay. You are. If you're enjoying yourself, if you're having fun while you're doing this, then you are absolutely doing it right. So that looks pretty good to me. That's gonna hold the back in there pretty well. So now let's look at the front. Now this one, I don't want it to fall out of the front either. But I don't really want to have crosses across the front here. I want it to just be this pretty piece of sea glass. So I am just going to make the front, I'm going to bring the wires a little forward so that they are overlapping the sea glass just a little bit. And then I'm going to follow the edge of the sea glass just like we did with the middle wire. But instead of going around all the way at the edge, this is going to go a little bit in front. Same thing, bend it up at the top so we can make what's called the bail. Alright, so now pinch all of your wires together at the top there and take a look at how this is going to look. Squeeze your wires tight. So this will be the front. The sides have that little bit of a cage, so that's going to hold it in there. I've got my half round wire at the bottom that's holding it all together, and then I have the back that has a cross that's really going to hold it in there. What's cool about making the back pretty too is that depending on how you're feeling that day, you can either wear it with the cage in the front or the cross. And there's no right or wrong way to wear this. You can wear it however you want. Now I have a pretty good looking sea glass pendant, and I have all these wires sticking out at the top. That's no good. So now we're going to take these wires and we're going to wrap them around each other to hold this tight. I'm going to take my very first wire, which is going to be the wire right at the front there, and I'm going to hold the other one super tight with my other hand. I'm pushing really hard with this hand to keep the wires tight. I'm going to take this one and wrap it around where all those wires are curved together. This can be pretty tough, so it might take a couple tries. And I'm going to keep on wrapping that 2 or 3 times around. So yeah, that looks pretty good, and I can let go of it, and everything should stay pretty much how I did it. Now, before I go too much further, I want to take my pliers and see how there's still some spots like this that have a gap between the wire and the sea glass. That's not going to be good because I don't want the sea glass to ever get loose. This is a really cool piece. I don't ever want to worry about losing it. So I'm going to take the side of my pliers with them closed, and I'm just going to use that to push the wire down against the glass. Any spot where I see a gap. It works best if you start with any gaps that are closest to where that half round wire is holding it together and work your way up to the top. If you have a really big gap, then sometimes you can actually use that wire up at the top. Let me just make sure I have the right one here. You can use that wire and kind of give it a tug up at the top, especially if you have really soft wire. The wire that I'm using is pretty hard, which means that it's going to hold this really tightly, but it can be a little bit more difficult to work with. That was covering up a little bit too much of the glass there, so I just moved that wire over by holding onto the sea glass with my thumb and just pulling that wire with the pliers. So I'm pretty happy with this. There aren't that many gaps left. So now we need to make the part that the chain or cord is going to go through. I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to push this down. And I'm squeezing really hard with my pliers because I'm trying to get that to lay flat. And I want it right at the top of the sea glass. So I'm also going to scoot this down a little bit by putting the pliers in there and squeezing. Okay, so I've got this piece of wire that's really close and tight. I'm going to take my pliers, or I'm going to take my cutters, and I'm going to get right in there as close as I can. With a small piece like this, get your cutters in place and then use your hand to cover it to protect your eyes in case that little piece of wire goes flying. This will protect you. So I'm going to cover it up and snip. So I'm going to feel that it's still kind of sharp, so I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to push it in. I don't want that to poke me as I'm wearing it. Now we are going to take the longest ones. So remember how I said if you had a longer piece to keep it in the middle? This right here is why. push the longest ones to the front, take one from either side, and pinch them together. You can use your pliers to get them to sit nicely together too. I'm just going to scoop these ones out of the way. So I have these round nose pliers that I'm going to use to make a loop with these. If you don't have round nose pliers, you can use anything round you have. So if you have a reusable straw, like this bamboo straw right here, you can use something like that to hold it in there and wrap the wire around to make a loop. You can use a pen. You can use whatever you have that is round. Because I have these pliers, I'm going to go ahead and use them. So you're going to get your round object and you're going to hold it right up. You're going to get it as close to that spot there where all the wires come together. You're going to pinch and then wrap it around your round thing. Just like that. So wrap it around till it all comes towards the back. I can get rid of my pliers now. Now I need to hold this in place. They're going to want to pop back up. So that's where these other wires come in. I take the longest wire I have left, and I'm just going to wrap it around all of this. I'm going to use my regular pliers to keep everything nice and neat. Okay, so that's as many wraps as I can get there. Now we're going to do a lot of cutting of this extra wire. So go ahead and cut off the extra. Again, cover with your hand so the wires don't fly and hit you. I'm going to cut the extra of these ones too that are just sticking up. That one I didn't cover because I was holding on to the tail of it. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Holding on to the tail so I know it's not going to fly. You only need to cover when it's a small piece that you can't hold on to. Just take your pliers and push them down. Push the sharp bits out of the way. Okay, so now I have these two tails back here. If I cut them off up here, then there's a chance that they will slowly loosen up if I wear this a lot. I don't want that to happen. Like I said, I don't want to lose this. So we're going to take them one at a time, bend them out to the side, then we're just going to wrap around the front. So you're going to end up with a good amount of wire that's wrapped up all around here. That's okay. That's what's going to help everything stay together. So even though I was originally planning on having these two sit together when I first looped it back, sometimes the wire does what it wants to, and it doesn't do what you try to tell it to do. So they're not going to sit together, so I'm going to spread them apart a little bit more and make it look like I did that on purpose. Take my round nose to make sure they're round all the way around. And I'm just gonna spread them apart. Make it look like that was supposed to be like that. No one will ever know. So there you go. Now you have your very own sea glass pendant. So what you can do with that is go and put it on a cord or a chain or whatever you want to wear this on. For the summer, I like bright colors. So I'm going to take these leather straps right here, and I think this pink one is going to look really cool with the green. So I'm going to put that through, and you can decide how long you want it, make a little knot, and then you have your very own sea glass necklace. Now you can do this method with anything that doesn't have a hole in it. So you can use it for sea glass or shells. You can even use it for cool rocks or acorns or anything else you can find that you might want to turn into jewelry. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope that you enjoyed learning how to make your very own jewelry. If you haven't already, please go ahead, like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff for the Center for Aquatic Sciences. That's the best way to find out everything that's going on for this upcoming week with World Oceans Day. We have awesome stuff going on every single day. Hope to see you there.